And that absolutely is a challenge. And if there's not good alignment, as I'm sure many of us have experienced, we can rapidly start producing solutions that are inconsistent with the needs of our users. And not to harp on the harp on the governance message, but I think really having some cross-functional alignment, like a cross-functional process that everyone has agreed to and that is led, I think, by the business is absolutely critical, right? So led by RevOps or led by sales ops, but involving folks from IT or the tech staff, the Salesforce admins or developers and so forth. And then having that clear process for intaking and prioritizing and reviewing and so forth is absolutely critical. Also, ensuring that there is good documentation both around the requirements and around the solution. I think I mentioned that before. One of the pitfalls is having business users articulate their needs, and the technology folks running off and building something and never sort of closing the loop, right? And so having your business users, the folks, a sampling of folks that are going to have to actually use the solution, involved in the review of the solution before it's built, and then in the testing of the solution is super helpful. And then I would say more on the sort of the organizational side of things. I think it's super helpful to hire the right folks. To hire folks on the tech side that have a bit of business acumen, as well as hiring folks on the business side who have a bit of technical acumen. It just makes those conversations between the two so much more productive, and eliminate a lot of the conflict and some of the challenges that can sometimes arise there. I think hiring people who have sort of a process orientation, right, who understand the importance of a consistent and structured way of doing things in order to produce consistent outcomes is super helpful. And then having people, whether it's on the IT side or the business side, who are good at translating, business speak, business requirements into more of those technical and sort of workable solutions, also super helpful. And then last but not least, I always, as a RevOps leader, I always wanted my business folks to take training, right? I wanted them to take Salesforce training so that they had the language, they had a way of describing their needs, and they had exposure to features and functionality in the platform to make their communications with their colleagues on the tech staff much more productive. So I would strongly advocate for both sides of that equation to get trained on Salesforce, just to drive that common language and that alignment.
Jim, just add a few points if you don't mind.
Sure.
One is really around, how do you know if you are misaligned, right? How do you know if your processes, your tech staff, are misaligned? And things that I've noticed in the past, and obviously this is assuming you don't have a proper governance structure in place, but things to look out for. Most typically, organizations will have shadow IT, or it's called shadow IT groups, right? And groups are all kind of doing their own IT themselves. So that's one indicator. Other less, other subtle indicators are when you have too many apps or too many tools in the business. And building on that, folks that where there's significant misalignment tend to take more of a tools first approach to solve a problem, because they're not driven by the process. Tech folks tend to think, hey, I'm going to implement a tool to solve a problem. But I think most folks on the call obviously realize, it's people process, prior to that. So those are sort of three things to look out for. Is if you have the rumblings of shadow IT happening, you have too many tools or just a significant amount of apps and tools in the enterprise, and you tend to take a tools first approach. These are leading indicators that there's misalignment between people, process, and the technology side of the equation. Governance and a steering committee often will help realign those.